welcome back to another episode of Andrew's Garage. Now kind of looking back at the last video, so the motor and transmission is in. It needs to be bolted down tight and everything yet, but I'm kind of jumping around a little bit to what I can do with what parts I have. So I recently got the fuse cell in, so I need to put some pads under that and get it bolted down. Now this is a Holley tank, so I'll be able to run their 12 volt Holley fuel pump, which is nice. And they're actually running a sale on that because they're trying to get rid of them, so that's nice. And then this is the current status of the car. So this is my least favorite thing to do, but I have the fuse panel mounted up there. So since I didn't have any wiring at all, I bought the smallest, I think it's a 12 circuit. So this is just to do the basics. So if it was a small block Chevy, it would be absolute basics. So just pretty much the only thing I needed this harness for is headlights, taillights, turn signals, and that's basically about it. Because the Holley, you can run your fans and fuel pump and stuff like that. So I might run mechanical gauges as well, just because I can, so I can have mechanical gauges and Holley's gauges. But I'd like to try to retrofit the old mechanical gauges and still use the original bezel and put them all behind it, and I think that'd be really nice. So basically I'm just separating the wires from longest to shortest, basically, because you know the longest ones are going to the back, shortest ones are staying inside, and the medium length ones are usually going to the front for, you know, like your coil power, your starter, high beam, low beams, and left and right turn signal. It's all that stuff. So basically I'm just trying to make it as easy as possible and separate the ones that I know exactly where they go. I'm getting these all loomed up, and I'm kind of in a predicament to where I don't know if I should run them out the firewall, but down underneath the car all the way back, or if I might just tape them up and run them inside the car. I'm kind of leaning towards doing that, just for the fact of this car's so low, and I'm trying to protect it from, you know, as many things as I can, since I don't have a barn yet. So I'm kind of thinking I'm going to run them through here and over the step, at least for the rear brake lights and everything anyways. So I've never really done it like that, but I think that might be the way I go about this one. So it's going to be a lot of just me scratching my head and looking at the same wires 80 times, but eventually I'll get it here. So Alright, so I've been working on this for a little while, and I think I finally got it whipped here. So these are all my front, so it'd be like left and right, parking lights, turn signals, headlight, low beam, high beam. These are set up kind of more like for a small block Chevy, so it's got like your coil wires and everything, which I think I'm going to use that coil switch wire for actually powering the Holly, because that is a switch 12 volt circuit, so that'll be a nice power wire. So I'll pull that back inside here and roll it up, and then this wire here, this black one, would be like for your AC, stuff like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and wire that up and put a switch inside the dash. So I'll roll this up, so if I ever put heat in this car, I'll be able to with this wire. So I'm gonna roll that up and get it set. I'll end up using that for the main power for the blower control feed and everything, instead of having AC. I know I won't have AC, but all that's separated for the front. This ignition stuff here just needs to be cut and wired into this kind of GM style universal ignition switch. So it's got your battery, start, ignition, all of that. It already has a fan on and off switch, which I'll probably wire this in to be a bypass. So if for whatever reason the Holly doesn't work, I'll have this wire ready, so I can go ahead and wire that in. So that wire for going out is right there. This is a power feed for the brake light switch. So this will be on one side of that switch that's on the proportioning valve. It'll come out to this, and this is the power wire for your headlight switch. So your brake light switch will interrupt that circuit, so your turn signals and everything will work even with the brake pedal pushed. So that's the way that works. So yeah, and these are just the indicator lights for like your dash indicator lights, and these are all your feeds coming back from all your sending units, which I'm still going to run like a mechanical oil sending unit. I'll have a water temp, so I'll have all them that I know for sure, so I can run my Holly and mount it on the dash somewhere where I can see it, but I'll also have them visual gauges that I'm going to tie back into the original gauge cluster. And I think for the tachometer, I'm going to try to cut a hole through here, cut these bars out, and buy a nice big tack. I might have my cousin 3D print me a bezel for it to slide in there, but I'm going to try to use this original to get rid of the clock and put a big tack in there. So all the wires are separated, and these ones are of course for the back, so it's like your fuel sending unit. This pink wire ties into it, and the rest are just left and rear turn and parking lights. So everything's all separated. Now that I got it separated, I can just start routing everything and pulling wires out to make sure everything is really perfect and getting it to the ignition switch. That's one thing in this car that I want to do differently than I haven't done in my previous vehicles, is the routing of the wires. I want it to be very organized, so there's no thought if I ever have to get back in here that where something is. I want to make sure it's labeled and make sure it's in there to where I can find it if I need to. So now that I got these separated, I'm gonna go ahead and start wiring in. First thing I'm gonna do is just extend these wires and mount the high beam low beam switch over there on the floor where the factory one was. So I'm gonna get that wired in, get that over there, and then I'll move on from there to probably the ignition switch and the old brake light switch. I'll get all that wired in, then I'll make my way to the headlight switch here. So, yep, and then I'll go on to the turn signal circuit. So there's a lot going on, a lot of wires got to do. Majority of it's just in this area, that's the complicated stuff, and then the rest is kind of just, it's cake. I just got to work on routing it. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started, get working on it, see how far we can get. Now I've kind of been jumping around a lot, doing what I can, but as of right now I have the fuel cell, it's mounted, taillight wires are ran back, which I just got my new taillights in. So these are just 50 Pontiac reproduction lights. They are glass, they're not plastic, which is nice. And then the 50 Pontiac was like a widely used taillight because it's a round and it mounts flat, and they used them on hot rods a lot of Model A coupes and stuff like that. So pretty easy to find. Alright, so this is kind of the end of the video here, but I'd like to show some updated pictures since I didn't get much footage after that.
So basically, the first photo is the wires that are stubbed through the passenger side firewall, and those would be the ones that'd be the headlight high beam, low beams, left and right turn, and parking lights, and just some other odds and ends stuff, like the fan wiring and just some other odds and ends, a couple sending units, and then the second pictures of the other side, and that was before I had a couple other sending wires in, so that would be like the cooler temperature was on that side for a little bit, and your wires for your brake light switch that tie into that proportioning valve are on that side. Also, the headers, I want to show the headers that are on there. Those are shorties, and that'll be in the next episode. I'll be doing some exhaust work, and then this final picture here is of the dash. So I didn't get much footage on me installing the dash or doing the gauges, but basically that is the original gauge panel, and I pulled off the original glass and the glass retainer plates on the back. And when those came out, I realized that the holes inside the dash were actually they were a little smaller than 2 inch, so I had to waller them out a little bit. But I got to where the 2 inch gauges would slide in the original holes. The middle centerpiece, I had to cut off the bottom of it where it said Silver Streak. I made a new panel out of 11 gauge and hole sawed a hole through it that would hold the GPS speedometer. Kind of had to set it back a little bit, but all the gauges are in the original bezel and they will go inside the dash, and it ends up looking pretty good in the end. So I'm pretty happy about that. But that's the end of today's video. Thanks for watching Andrew's Garage. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.